Yummy. All right, you guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. This is Tasha, MAMABEAR Prepping. We're going to talk today about preparedness, a preparedness item, an item that is extremely important to have into your preps. I've done a video before on this. I'll try to find that video and link it in the description box below, where I talk more about storage of salt. But today I want to talk a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about storage of salt, because what prompted this video was somebody asking about that. But I want to talk about the importance of salt and other salt items, and just why, and really hit home and get your mind thinking about salt in general. So salt in general, we went through a scare a few months ago. People were starting to circulate some information about salt being an issue, having some shortages. Obviously I didn't see any shortages. I couldn't find a whole lot on it. We produce a lot of the salt here. We mine a lot of the salt here for different processes. We have a large distribution, Morton salt here in the United States, but salt, when we talk about collapse, when we talk about end days, we talk about just going through an event, having salt is such an important thing to have in your preparedness items. And I want you to think about how important salt is. Obviously, we need salt for food, for flavoring of food, right? But what's very important is when you go through something and all of a sudden you're eating more of a real food and not prepackaged, preservative filled, high sodium filled foods. That's what you're used to as a society. Majority is used to that, unfortunately. Fast food, all this stuff. And then you don't have that anymore and you're eating real food. And yes, of course, it's getting salted and everything. But you need that salt extremely, because your body will literally be going through withdrawals, which could cause other health problems, right? As you detox, as your body gets used to having way less levels of sodium in it, and salt, right? So it's just super, super important that, yes, we prep it in that sense that it's like seasoning, it's like other basic ingredients. We need it. Salt will last forever if it's kept right, if it's not compromised. To me, salt, the only way it gets compromised is two things: insects, and the biggest one for me is humidity, condensation. It gets wet. If it doesn't get that, then it will last forever, okay? People ask me how to store. I did a video on that, but for me, it's very, very easy. I'm pretty much storing it in the containers that they come in, and then I'm putting that inside of a tote or a 5-gallon bucket, right? I'm putting it in another container to keep insects, to keep water, to keep condensation out of it, and then I'm keeping it in a nice, cool place. Has to be regulated, right? A lot of people ask me all the time. I get a lot of questions about where to keep food, preserved items, canning stuff, stuff like this that you're stockpiling, that condensation is a big issue. It's got to be in a regulated space, right? I would not be keeping it in the old shed outside when it gets 105 degrees outside. You've got to keep stuff inside in a regulated, somewhat regulated situation, right? A lot of people, well, my house doesn't have AC, whatever. Yeah, I get that. But just like you try to cool yourself down, and the ways you cool yourself down, you need to think about that with in regards to your food as well, right? for certain foods, right? And salt is kind of one of those that, I'm thinking about, what's the humidity? What's it like? Hey, maybe it's just putting a little humidifier in the room, in the space, to help just fight that humidity, a little bit of that humidity back, okay? Just do and fight however you need to fight, and think it through. Now, so I'll link that video. I did that a very long, that was like the beginning of my channel, you guys. I did this video on storing salt and how to store salt. But let's think about salt a little bit bigger too. Yes, you need it for flavoring, for food. You need it for baking. You need it for cooking, different things, right? But you need it in a lot of food preservation processes require salt. You need salt. Curing meat, canning food, fermenting food, brining food, doing pickling, different recipes that are going to call for salt, that you need salt. And there's different salts that you can get, but you want a high quality salt, okay? But you can get a variety of, fine salts, fine sea salts, regular sea salts, stuff that you can crush down yourself. You can get pink Himalaya, you can get Redmond, you can get good quality salts, but you want to have that, okay? And you need that. And even salt with iodine, you need that a little bit, because for thyroid stuff, okay? Just important. So salt. Ice cream salts. I could go on all day about the different types of salts. So a variety is good. Pickling salts, the variety is good to have, okay? So have that. But if you're gonna pick one salt, you're gonna say, hey, I just would like one kind of across the board, just get a very, very good high quality salt, okay? If you do that, you'll be golden, and then you store that. But I like a variety, okay? Personally. Okay, so let's see. Salts. Other things with salts, right? Food preservation, super, super high. How about just salt? This is a different type of variety of salt, right? This is not table salt, but how about salt that you use for weatherizing, for snow, for ice, for your pathways, for your driveway, for your deck area, wherever it is you're walking, your stairs, stepping down to something, whatever it is. Do you have the salt for that type of salt for that type of situation? You know, with climate change and all these things happening, a lot of people are dealing with weather that they never dealt with before. We're going to continue to see change like that. You're going to continue to see, seasons change. Expect things to change as far as weather, and things increasing as far as super hot and super cold and super icy, and just all these things, high intensity winds, flooding, extra things. And so in regards to salt, right, having that salt in regards to taking care of your driveways, your walkways, your different ways that you're walking. Because let me tell you, if a collapse happens, again, what's not happening? There's no hospitals, there's no nursing, I almost said nursing home. There's no hospitals, there's no clinics, there's no places you can just go to, right? If there's a collapse or something happens major. And so safety is going to be a huge thing. And so being able to, make things safe, one little fall and then all of a sudden you can't go anywhere. You've got to stay home and just heal, hopefully. That can be a big deal. So think about salt in a bigger picture too, not just table salt. Also think about livestock. How about salt licks? Different things like that for animals, right? There's salt licks in a variety of animals and pets, even just pets, livestock in general, that have salt licks of some sort, right? In their little cages, right? Different animals take different things. And so get those things, stockpile those things. This is not something we really talk about. Maybe it's not something you even think about. Maybe you have an animal that has that and you haven't thought about that yet, of preserving that, not preserving, but getting extras of that and stockpiling and making sure that you have that. So think about salt. This is a basic ingredient, if you will, that is helpful in all types of ways, agriculturally, weatherizing ways in your home, obviously, and cooking and preserving food, which is extremely, extremely important. And you need to have it stockpiled, right? And you need to be thinking about it in the future. Not only that, it's huge bartering thing. Because think about this, the average family, everybody has salt. People love salt, right? But a lot of people, first of all, cook with a lot of seasonings, and salt is not one of them. They use a lot of other seasonings that have salt in them, right? And they don't necessarily have salts. A lot of families don't have even an extra salt. So family has salt in the cupboard, salt and pepper. But if you go there, there's a lot of families that do not have an extra pepper, do not have an extra salt. And so once that's gone, that's gone. And that's a huge bartering thing, to just have salt one day and then you don't have salt and you're cooking stuff, and you're going to be looking at hubby, I need salt for these beans, whatever. Hubby's going to be like, we need salt for these beans, and you don't have anything. Okay. So, get that extra stuff now. Okay. It's super, super important. So families, they don't have the backup, let alone quality salt. Okay. So just think it through, take a look, do an inventory, see what you have in regards to salt. Take a look at how you're storing it, how you're keeping it. Are you keeping it the safest that you can, as far as keeping it in a cool, dark place, away from humidity, away from heat, super, super high intensity heat that would cause, humidity, insects, right? You shouldn't be just having salt containers and just put them right on a counter somewhere and just stockpile them. Some of the containers are very, very good, very, very thick, but some of them are not. Like those cardboard boxes that a lot of salt comes in, that's no bueno. First of all, it gets wet, it's done. Two, it's cardboard, very easy for insects to get into the cracks and the seams of stuff and get in stuff you don't even know they're in there. So, I'm okay with keeping salt in its original containers, especially if it's like a high quality glass or plastic. That's fine. But if I have, a box, let's say, that I open, or I'm trying to keep a ton of boxes, I found a sale, let's say, I'm trying to keep them in a different way. I'm either, trying to vac seal them in some Mylar bags. I'm trying to put them in glass jars. I'm a big fan of glass jars, airtight glass jars, like whatever it is. But Original containers for me, for the most part, work. I take the original container, put it into whatever other container I'm gonna put it in for that second barrier, and that's how I keep my salt. And I haven't had any issues, of course, but I don't have salt that I've had for 30 years, right? You know, regular rotation, you should be rotating everything. So I always, it's crazy when I see people pull stuff out that's like 30 years old, and I'm like, and they're like, let's pull this salt out and see if it's good. And I'm like, why wasn't a part of a rotation? That's a mistake from an older generation of preparedness, in my opinion, is just stockpiling, putting it up, putting it away, and like never going back to it. Preps should always be part of, for the most part, regular rotation, unless it is a no, you know, it's a freeze dried, meant to last 25, 30 years. It's like, you know, your secret squirrel stash that you bought for an emergency, for a rainy day, for the bunker, for the wherever, right? And you have that stockpile. That's completely different to me, but everything else should be in some sort of regular rotation. Okay. Okay. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope this helped you think of some other ways that we use salt in our lives so that we can prepare in those ways. Medically, there's a lot of ways that you use salt. I mean, orally, if you have mouth problems, gum problems, you have a scratchy throat, you have some gunk back here, some just nasty gunk that you're trying to kill, you know, a little salt wash, right? That stuff is amazing. So like I could probably go on all day with the different ways that you can utilize salt. Please share those, right, in the comments. Share the ways that you use salt, the ways we need salt, ways you store it, kinds of salts, maybe your favorite salts, other ways, if I've missed something, other types of salts that we use in life and society for different things. Talk about that in the comments and just help everybody help each other as a group as far as the ideas and keeping that going, because a lot of folks here, we're watching this and we're taking notes. I'm taking notes when I do read through comments and I see something, I'm like, ooh, I like that, and I'll write it down, right? Oh, I need that, or write it down, right? So you know, I do read some of the comments and I do see stuff and I learn stuff every single time I do, right? From stuff that you guys have taught me. So you guys be well. It's an easy peasy beautiful Thursday. Our sun is back. Like I mentioned yesterday, we had a little bit of clouds and a little storm front rolling just for the day, and now we're back to sun, and we should have that through the weekend. So super excited about that, super excited to get outside, and I'll see you guys tomorrow in the next video. Take care. Bye.